Perek Chav Mishnah Yud Aleph. Shloisha al shloisha ba'ashpois, bori v'tzoyrer melach. B'bayis, oy bori, oy tzoyrer melach. Right, what the Mishnah is telling us here is how do you get rid of the tumah or of a beged, or the ability of a beged to be makabel tumah? How do you break a beged? We'll see later on in Perek Chav. In fact, at the end of reading the next Mishnah, when you have the small shear for a beged, i.e. 3 etzbois by 3 etzbois, the small shear for Kabbalas Tumah, all you've got to do is throw it in the garbage, throw it in the bin, and you're done. It's tire. However, when we're dealing with a bigger shear of beged, shloisha al shloisha, 3 tfachim by 3 tfachim, this is something more chashuv. It's harder to get rid of the tumah and the Kabbalas Tumah, and you don't get rid of it by just throwing it in the ashpa. Says the Mishnah, when we're dealing with shloisha al shloisha ba'ashpos, and you've thrown it in the garbage, then it is still able to be makabel tumah if two conditions are complied with, and that is bori and v'tzoyrer melach. We'll explain these terms later on. If it's bori and tzoyrer melach, then even if you've thrown it into the ashpa, it's still makabel tumah because it's got a choshev shear of 3 by 3 tfachim. Says the Mishnah B'bayis, the normal beged, a normal piece of cloth hanging around in the house, and you want to know this is a shear in fact for all begodim, then the shear for a beged to be makabel tumah is oy bori, oy tzoyrer melach. Bori means it's strong, it's healthy. It can be, we'll see later on what it has to be, what's called healthy. Tzoyrer melach means it's physically able to wrap up inside its salt. Kamo melach yud tzoyrer, how much salt do you have to be able to put in it? How much melach does this beged be able to have to carry? Roiva, a quarter of a kav, which is about a large amount of salt. Bori means it's strong enough to carry this salt. Tzoyrer melach means it's not been ruined with holes and torn and ragged so that all the salt will spill out. So the word bori is on the physical strength of the beged, and tzoyrer melach is actually on the makeup of how complete and whole the beged is. So in the ashpa, a shloisha al shloisha needs both conditions complied. It's got to be bori and tzoyrer melach. Now we have a machlokas between Rabbi Huda and the Chachamim. What sort of salt? Rabbi Huda omer bedaka, fine salt. The Chachamim omer begasa, thick salt, heavy salt. Not heavy salt. Gasa means big lumps of salt. Elu ve'elu miskavenim lahakal. Each one is actually saying a kula. This means as follows. Rabbi Huda holds it's actually harder. You need a stronger type of beged to hold salt, which is daka, because thin salt is actually heavier, it's denser. Therefore, Rabbi Huda says it's got to be able to hold a roiva hakav of melech daka, and he's saying a kula because he's saying actually it's harder to contain melech daka than melech gasa, and therefore as soon as it cannot contain melech daka anymore, it is already considered to be broken. The Chachamim say it's actually harder to transport melech gasa, because although melech gasa is lighter and is not as dense, it's actually got more jagged edges, and therefore more likely to tear. Each one is actually saying a kula. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Shovim shloisha al shloisha ba'ashbois, l'sholosh al sholosh b'bayis. When I said the original din of the Mishnah, when I said that a 3 by 3 tfachim in the garbage, in the bin, is still able to be makabel tumah if it's got two conditions, bori and tzoyrer melach, the Tanna Kama holds that if you have a shloisha al shloisha ba'ashbois, bori and tzoyrer melach, it's able to be makabel all tumas, i.e. tumas medras, and the regular kabbalas tumah of tumas maga of sheretz. Says B'Shimon, no. When you have a shloisha al shloisha ba'ashbois and bori and tzoyrer melach, he holds that's not good enough for tumas medras. Tumas medras falls away the minute you throw it in the garbage, just like we'll see later on sholosh al sholosh falls away when you throw it away. But he says, I agree, shloisha al shloisha ba'ashbois and bori and tzoyrer melach, is able to be makabel tumas meis, and tumas sheretz, and tumas maga, the same way as sholosh al sholosh in the bayis. In other words, what Rabbi Shimon is saying is, shloisha al shloisha ba'ashbois gets rid of tumas medris. But when it's shloisha al shloisha ba'ashbois and bored tzara melach, that shear applies to tumas like tumas meis and tumas sheretz. Then it's equal to a sholosh al sholosh b'bayis, which of course is makabel tumas sheretz. However, Rabbi Shimon says that if you throw a 3x3 tefachim away into the garbage, tumas medris always falls away, even though it is bori and tzara melach. Sorry, that was a bit complicated, but we're getting on to the last Mishnah, which is a little bit longer, maybe a little bit easier.